What often gets lost in conversations about La Maupin because her personal life was so chaotic is how significant her career was to the development of opera as we know it today. La Maupin was mostly untrained, but she was said to have one of the most beautiful voices in the world. Over the course of her career, she originated 25 roles, becoming known for playing goddesses, warriors, and other assertive female characters. Though she could sing soprano roles, her lower range was more powerful, and parts were rewritten for her to take advantage of that fact, effectively making her the first contralto in the world. Composer André Campra created the role of Clorinda in Tancred specifically for La Maupin, and it is the first French opera ever written in which the lead female role is not a soprano.
So I wanted to respond to this video, not because I hold anything against the creator. There's very few scholarly resources out there about Maupin. Most of the stuff is these kind of like pop culture retellings of her life on the internet, and most of them don't cite any sources and don't have any kind of nuance about what stories are more likely to be true or more likely to not be true. You can look at some of my other videos to find out why, especially the one about the convent story. I know it's such an amazing story. I wish it was true too. But there's other really fun stories that are more likely to be true. But I just want to clarify, there truly are only two things we know for sure about Maupin, and that is she worked at the Paris Opera, and we know some, but not all of the roles she sang, and that is it. Nothing else has any hard documentary evidence behind it. But what I really want to talk about is the stuff about opera and music. I have an advantage here because I wrote my dissertation about Maupin not just as a historian but also as a musician. And I've actually sung some of the things that were written for Maupin. We have the scores, we have the notes exactly as they were written. The range is not any different from any of the other roles written for women at the Paris Opera at that time. They didn't really distinguish between voice types in the way that we do now. They distinguish more between character types, and this is a system that was borrowed from French spoken theater of the time. So it was more about, are you this sort of like villainous stereotype character type, or are you an ingenue, or do you play sort of like comedic coquette characters? So these were the types that they were distinguishing between, less so vocal types and vocal ranges. And actually all of the roles for women at the Paris Opera were written in a fairly restrictive kind of medium soprano range. That's what we would consider it like today. And that was on purpose because of the way the system worked. They were constantly doing revivals of old shows, and they had these really long runs. People had to be able to fill in for each other. So they intentionally wrote the roles in this kind of medium range so that anyone could step in at a moment's notice if needed. And that's true of all of the roles written for Maupin. They are no different. They're in exactly the same range. I actually have a suspicion that contralto is a mistranslation. It only shows up in later English language sources. In the original French, she is referred to as a bas-dessus, which literally means low soprano. So they may not actually mean that she has that much lower of a voice. Maybe she had a little bit lower of a voice. Maybe she had a richer or warmer tone. But I'm not convinced that her voice was that much lower that it completely changed opera. We don't have any hard evidence. We certainly don't have any recordings, as much as that would be amazing. But Maupin was exceptional in one sense at the opera. As I said, they distinguish more between character types. And there were these three types: the serious, the ingenues, and the comedic types. And most of the time, as people rose through the ranks of the opera, they would kind of get pigeonholed into one type. But Maupin was unusual in that she played all three character types all throughout her career, even when she had risen to the highest rank of first soloist. So there is something unusual about her, but it may not be her range. We just don't really know. If you're interested in learning more of the real history behind Maupin and sort of digging through the misinformation that has layered up throughout the centuries, you can read my dissertation if you want. It's up for free on my website, but if you're not interested in reading a full dissertation, I totally get it. We are also working on a musical film about her, and that will be coming out in the spring of 2026. So keep your eyes peeled.